We finally agree on something.
All right, the meeting's adjourned then. All right. Good evening. Will the Standing Committee on Rules of the House please come to order? This meeting has been called to consider proposed amendments to the rules, orders, and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. Our first item of business is the election of a vice chairperson. Are there any nominations? Mr. Maruth.
I nominate MLA Blaschko.
Any other nominations? Hearing no. Mr. Blaschko has been nominated. Do you accept?
I do.
Hearing no other nominations, then Mr. Blaschko is elected the vice chairperson. So you'll find before you copies of a document entitled Legislative Assembly of Manitoba Rule Change Proposals, May 2024, Virtual Rules and Other Minor Amendments, which we will be considering today. Does the committee agree to allow the clerk and the deputy clerk to speak on the record to provide an explanation for each amendment?
Agreed.
Okay. That has been agreed to. Does the government house leader have any opening comments?
No. Or, well, yes, I do, actually. I want to.
The honorable house leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to acknowledge our clerk and deputy clerk for the amount of work that went into this. Those of us that have been on the Rules Committee for way too long know that there are lots of meetings that go into this, lots of discussions with everybody around the table, but certainly it doesn't compare to the work that goes on behind the scenes to make all of these legislative changes. So I just want to acknowledge the work that you both did. Miigwech.
Thank you, Minister. Does the official opposition house leader have any opening comments? The honorable opposition house leader.
Yes, obviously, thank you for all your hard work, and I look forward to getting through the rest of the rules here throughout the summer. So keep up the great work, and I know it's you're stretched very thin as it is now, so we do appreciate you working on these and getting them through, and just in the appropriate time.
We thank the member for his statement. Does the member for Tyndall Park have any opening comments? The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
I just echo the thoughts that have been shared. I want to thank you both for all the work that you've put into this and being patient as we go back and forth on it, and all of your efforts in the House.
We thank the member. We will now begin the consideration of the document. We will consider these amendments in numerical order, and members may ask questions or comment on each proposal as we proceed. For your reference, I will be referring to the proposal numbers listed on the left side of each page. So, away we go. Proposal number 1. Agreed.
Oh, no. So, proposal 1 regarding Rule 1.
Okay. Proposal number 1 regarding Rule number 1, bracket 1, procedure generally. Does the clerk have a comment? Mr. Yersh.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the committee. Also, thank you to everyone who's participated in getting this package to here. Tim, the deputy clerk, and I are the ones who are here speaking to it, but there's political staff that work on this as well, and we're grateful for them, as well as our own procedural staff. The 4 clerk assistants and our journals associate are all part of the process that brings this together, and we're grateful to all of them. So as you know, most of the provisions in this package relate to virtual sittings of the House. There are a few other unrelated amendments, and we'll describe those as we go along. The virtual proposals are directly based on the sessional order that the House has been using since October of 2020, and they've been transferred into this package with some tweaks and some other small changes. So, having said that, the first item, procedure generally, this provision tweaks how the House and committees are to be referenced, making it consistent with wording used in the rules proposals within this package.
Do the members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, shall proposal number 1 regarding Rule 1(1) pass? So, proposal number 2.
Oh, sorry, so you have to say that it's passed.
Proposal number 1 regarding Rule 1(1) is accordingly passed. Proposal number 2 regarding Rule 1(3), the rules and orders and forms of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly.
Just definitions.
Definitions. Mr. Yerish.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So the terms moderator and virtual are used throughout these new rules. And so they are defined here at the beginning, along with other definitions currently existing in the rules for reference and clarity.
Do the members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, shall proposal number 2 regarding Rule 1(3) pass? Proposal number 2 regarding Rule 1(3) is accordingly passed. Proposal number 3 regarding virtual proceedings enabled shall, regarding Rule 1(4). Mr. Yerish.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So this key provision is essentially the enacting clause that enables members to participate virtually in proceedings of the House and the committees. This is kind of the meat of, well, pardon that term, but this is the key point that allows virtual proceedings to happen. A lot of other provisions speak to other elements of this, but this is the one that says you can actually participate virtually, and that's a valid participation in a proceeding of the House or the committee.
Members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, shall proposal number 3 regarding Rule 1(4) pass? Proposal number 3 regarding Rule 1(4) is accordingly passed. Proposal number 4 regarding Rule 1(5), requirements for virtual participation. Mr. Deputy Clerk, Mr. Abbott.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you everyone for allowing me to be here this evening and speak on the record. Proposal 4 adds a requirement for virtual members to have their video turned on and directs them to have their microphones muted when they are not speaking. Whilst it's not in the rules, members will continue to be encouraged and requested to use a headset when participating in proceedings.
Do the members have any comments? Yeah, Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, just a general question on the whole document. You said there's minor changes. The one I reviewed in here, I couldn't find them. Will you point out the changes when we get to them from the documents that were handed out previously?
Mr. Yerish.
Thank you. Yes, we could do that. They were literally like typos and things that we forgot to underline, that sort of thing. There wasn't really any substantive changes. So I don't know if you'd want us to identify that, or.
Mr. Johnson.
Only if there's a substantial, meaningful change. Yeah, if it's just typos, I'm fine, but thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Shall Rule number 4, proposal number 4 regarding Rule 1(5) requirements for virtual participation pass? Proposal number 4 regarding Rule 1(5) is accordingly passed. Proposal number 5 regarding Rule 2(1) sitting periods. Indigenous Veterans Day, Orange Shirt Day. Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This provision amends the sessional calendar to ensure that the House does not sit on Indigenous Veterans Day or Orange Shirt Day. When either of these days occur during a sitting week and the House loses a sitting day, this rule will require an additional sitting day to be added at the beginning of the full sitting to ensure that there are sufficient days to allow for the completion of all stages of designated bills. This change adds a new sub-rule called Days of Observance, which includes these 2 days. Other days could be added to this in the future if the need arose. There's also, and this relates to the point from Mr. Johnson, there's been a minor wording update to improve clarity of this rule and remove superfluous text that should have been taken out after a previous round of rule changes. And members of the committee can see what's been taken out on page 3. It's the 3rd paragraph that starts these extended sitting days through to the bottom of the 4 items listed just below it, the second reading, committee stage, report, and concurrence. That has been removed. It related to a rule that, the wording of the rule prior to the changes made in 2022.
Members of the committee have any comments? Shall item number 5, Rule 2(1) sitting periods pass? Proposal number 5 regarding Rule 2(1) is accordingly passed. Proposal number 6 regarding Rule 2(8). Yes.
So you passed Rule 2(1), but there's Rule 2(2). Are we fine? Sorry for my, I want to make sure we pass the whole thing. You said Rule 2(1), but on page 4, there's Rule 2(2) inclusive of Proposal 5. Do we need to pass it?
Mr. Abbott.
There are 2 rules contained in that proposal. By passing the proposal, it encompasses both of those rules.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So now we're on proposal number 6 regarding Rule 2(8), specified government bills. Shall item number, Mr. Yarish.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This provision adds to the rules the recent practice whereby the government House Leader specifically identifies which bills will be considered specified. This practice has evolved to add clarity to the process, and codifying it in the rules here will ensure that clarity in the future. So we've been doing this for a few years because it's been useful to the process of those deadline days, but it wasn't precisely in the rules, and we've now made it very explicit in the rules. The change also adds extra clarity to state that no private members' bills can be specified or designated, because the current rule actually just said opposition bills, which was incomplete because it applies to any private members' bills regardless of whether they're opposition government or independent. So that was clarified. The rule also actually adds a provision to table a list again at concurrence and 3rd reading, which is a new provision, but through discussions this was seen to be beneficial because there's a possibility that a government might, after committee stage on a bill, might decide they don't want to proceed with the bill. This has happened once or twice with both governments that have been in power in recent decades. Every once in a while they get past the committee stage and they decide they don't want to proceed. Without having this provision here, the government would essentially be locked into having to let that bill pass unless they voted against it, which governments aren't usually wanting to do. So this allows clarity both at 2nd reading and in 3rd reading, and it gives that opportunity for a government to withdraw something if they felt the need. Unlikely to happen commonly, but it's good to have the provision there.
Do committee members have any comments? Then shall proposal number 6 regarding Rule 2(8), specified government bills, government House Leader to table list, shall that pass? Agreed. Pass. Therefore, proposal number 6 regarding Rule 2(8), specified government bills, government House Leader to table list is accordingly passed. regarding proposal number 7, emergency procedures, emergency provisions regarding Rule 2, bracket 8.1. Mr. Yarish.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So in 2020, the COVID pandemic showed that under exceptional circumstances, the Assembly must be able to be flexible. This provision is taken and adapted from the sessional order and allows the Speaker and the leaders of the recognized parties to react to emergency situations when the House isn't sitting. In March of 2020, we were sitting, and the House leaders of the day were able to make essentially a leave request that gave us the ability to not sit and spelled out how we could come back. If such an emergency happened when the House weren't sitting, though, we wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have had to go into session, figure it out, and then move on from there. This allows you to do it either in session, or if it's outside of session, it can be in writing from those as people identified, as I said, the leaders of the recognized party and the Speaker.
Does members of the committee have any comments? Then shall proposal number 7 regarding Rule 2, bracket 8.1 pass? Pass. Proposal 7 regarding Rule 2, bracket 8.1 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 8 regarding Rule 5, bracket 1, quorum. Mr. Yarish.
Thank you. So this is one of a number of relatively small provisions, but we're just inserting the words "and members participating virtually" because it enables members to be counted as part of quorum if they're participating virtually or if they're in the House.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, shall proposal number 8 regarding Rule 5, bracket 1 pass? Proposal number 8 regarding Rule 5, bracket 1 is accordingly passed. Next, proposal number 9 regarding Rule 5, bracket 3, quorum bells. Mr. Yarish.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So similarly, flowing from the last one, this is just revised wording to include virtual participation of MLAs during quorum counts.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Seeing none, shall proposal 9 regarding Rule 5, bracket 3 pass? Proposal 9 regarding Rule 5, bracket 3 is accordingly passed. Proposal number 10 regarding Rule 8, bracket 2, election of speaker exempt from virtual provisions. Mr. Yarish.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So as members know, a new speaker is elected through a secret ballot process that takes place in the chamber. And because of the highly sensitive and confidential nature of electing a speaker, only members physically present in the chamber may be eligible to vote. This will be the only rule in the rule book that is exempt from these virtual provisions. Every other aspect of participating in the House, members can do virtually, but not this, at least not yet. This provision has been added to allow the House leaders specifically to instruct the clerk to develop procedures to enable virtual participation during the secret ballot process in the event that it's not physically possible for all members to be present in the chamber due to an emergency or another situation. I will commit, and I'll commit my team to developing a procedure to have a virtual participation for a secret ballot. We haven't figured it out yet, and we wanted to move forward with this package. So we put this provision in here that in the event, and we shouldn't be needing to elect a speaker until after the next general election in several years, but if for some reason that needs to happen before then, we will figure out how to do that, and we will definitely figure out and put it into place in the rules before that next general election. So over the next couple of years, we're going to work out what's the best process to do this, and then we'll, at a subsequent rules committee, we will adopt that into the rules, and then it'll be there. So this is effectively a placeholder until we figure out how to manage that.
Members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, shall proposal number 10 regarding Rule 8, bracket 2 pass? Proposal number 10 regarding Rule 8, bracket 2 is accordingly passed. Regarding proposal number 11 regarding Rule 4, bracket 1 termination. 14 bracket 1, termination of debate before division. Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This is the first of three provisions that will enable members to vote both in the House and when participating virtually. So provision 11 enables virtual participation of MLAs during divisions or a recorded vote by simply removing the word chamber.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Shall proposal 11 regarding rule 14 bracket 1 pass? Proposal 11 regarding rule 14 bracket 1 is accordingly passed. Proposal 12 regarding rule 14 bracket 2, entering and leaving during divisions. Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This provision clarifies the participation of MLAs during divisions by removing the reference to the chamber and also tidying up the language.
Members of the committee have any comments? Shall proposal 12 regarding rule 14 bracket 2 pass? Proposal 12 regarding rule 14 bracket 2 is accordingly passed. Proposal 13 regarding rule 14 bracket 9, declaration of voting intentions. Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This provision removes the requirement for a member to stand when declaring how they would have voted. This helps account for those participating virtually because we do not need those members to stand. And it's one of a number of rules that makes that change in this proposal document.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Shall proposal 13 regarding rule 14 bracket 9 pass? Proposal 13 regarding rule 14 bracket 9 is accordingly passed. Proposal 14 regarding rule 18 bracket 1, naming of a member for an offense in the House. Mr. Yarish.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Members would be familiar, at least conceptually, with the idea of naming a member. It's the process by which the Speaker can remove a member, literally physically eject them from the chamber. So this provision allows the Speaker to order the moderator, and actually the Sergeant at Arms as well, to remove a member from the virtual proceedings of the House. So it's the digital equivalent of removing someone from the chamber. We take them out of the Zoom call.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, it just says, or direct the member to terminate their virtual participation. Can, well, whoever the speaker, the staff, can they terminate it, or does the member have to terminate it?
Mr. Yarish.
That's coming.
So, any other comments? Hearing none, shall proposal 14 regarding rule 18 bracket 1 pass? Proposal 14 regarding rule 18 bracket 1 is accordingly passed. Proposal 15 regarding rule 18 bracket 4, suspension from service of House for session. Mr. Yarish.
So to answer Mr. Johnson's question, this is where that happens. So there's stages of the naming process. There's a number of things that happens, but specifically at the point that someone is named, they are asked to voluntarily leave, and the sergeant will escort them out of the chamber. But if a member decides they don't want to leave and they want to put up some resistance to that, and the sergeant is actually instructed to remove them by force, then they are removed for the remainder of that session. So the digital equivalent of the sergeant actually taking arms on a member and moving them out is the sergeant will, if a member refuses to leave the Zoom call, literally the sergeant at arms will go over to the moderator's desk and remove them from the Zoom call. So it's the digital equivalent of escorting them out of the chamber.
Any other comments from committee members? Shall proposal 15 regarding rule 18 bracket 4 pass? Proposal 15 regarding rule 18 bracket 4 is accordingly passed. Proposal 16 regarding rule 19 bracket 1, decorum on adjournment. Mr. Yarish.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This provision adds wording to reflect that virtual members do not need to rise in their place at the end of each sitting day. similar to the provision that was mentioned a few minutes ago. Virtual members aren't required to stand. So we removed things like, words like shall stand and changed it to members participating virtually shall remain in place.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, Proposal 16 regarding Rule 19, bracket 1, pass. Proposal 16 regarding Rule 19, bracket 1 is accordingly passed. Proposal 17 regarding Rule 19, bracket 4, use of electronic devices. Mr. Yerish.
Thank you. So this is regarding the use of electronic devices, and of course that's something that's evolved over the last 20, 30 years as electronic devices have become more ubiquitous in our world. Prior to COVID, members were allowed to have them in the chamber, but weren't allowed to really use them unless they were in the loge and so on. But when COVID happened and many members weren't in the chamber, it became necessary, especially for whips and house leaders, to be able to communicate with their members who were virtual to let them know what was coming up in the house. So in the sessional order, there was more, the provisions were added to make it more flexible to use electronic devices. So this one adds wording to update to the use of electronic devices following new practices since the introduction of virtual. And as the Assembly now broadcasts gavel to gavel, the reference to oral questions was removed, because that's how the old rule read, to allow the rules to encompass the whole sitting day and committee meeting. So it's exactly the process we've been using for the last couple of years. And really now the only prohibition on electronic devices is that you shouldn't be holding them while you're answering a question in question period or whatever. It shouldn't be on camera. You can still have a tablet, members sometimes use tablets to read speeches from, which is fine. The idea is that they shouldn't be on camera, and that's essentially what that's what the new rule says.
Members of the committee have any comments? Hearing none, shall Proposal 17 regarding Rule 19, bracket 4 pass? Proposal 17 regarding Rule 19, bracket 4 is accordingly passed. Proposal 18 regarding Rule 24, bracket 1, routine proceedings. Mr. Yerish.
So this is, you heard me mention off the top that there were a few items in this package that were suggested through the rules group process that don't have anything to do with virtual. This is one of them. This was a suggestion from one of the members of the committee to allow for a new process to be part of routine proceedings, which is the introduction of guests. Currently, the speaker does all of the introduction of guests. Sometimes members will make reference to guests while they're in a member statement and so on, but the sort of more formal introduction of guests is done by the speaker. This provision, and there's a second part to it that'll come in a moment, this provision allows members to do that, to have introduce their own guests. And in a moment, I'll show you we have some rules about how to do that, but this is just the one that inserts it between member statements and oral questions, which is typically when the speaker will introduce guests as well. I will also add that the adoption of these rules for members introducing guests does not change the speaker's prerogative to introduce guests either at this point or at any point during the day.
Minister Fontaine.
I thought that when our last meeting, Rules Committee meeting, I thought that we had discussed we would do this potentially as like a sessional order or a motion just to see how it goes. This has been now put in here.
Mr. Yerish.
We could still do that. If that's the will of the committee, we could still do that. We were under the impression that there was the intention to try this here, but we could absolutely do that for this one and the other one. And if that's the case, then the committee can just not agree to this and we can carry it forward in another fashion.
Minister Fontaine.
I want to hear Derek first.
Mr. Johnson.
What is the definition, and it's not in here, but it's in our notes, but introducing guests in the gallery. When we're switching to virtual, what is the definition of the gallery? Can I get up every single day and introduce my guests that are attending virtually in the virtual gallery, or do they have to physically